Hello everybody watching on YouTube, and welcome to race number 17 of Season 3 NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series. I'm Levi McIntyre, the voice of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series, here to welcome you to the Jack in the Box 350 here at Sawmill Speedway as we're getting set for 14 laps of racing at one of my favorite road courses on the schedule. But before we look at the starting lineup, let's take a look at how the point standings look coming into the race today. After last week at Las Vegas, new points leader David Rivera, our champion from last season, took over the points lead, and he leads by only 7 points over James Qualls. Third is Charles Sanford, fourth is Dylan Jacobs, fifth Johnny Gardner. Sixth is Joshua Sekuli, seventh Zach Flickinger, eighth Matt McIntyre, ninth Austin LaPlante, and then 10th is Emmanuel Hartnett. Right now, the drivers that are the wild cards are still Pichu London and Chris Dollarton for being inside the top 30 in points and outside the top 10 in points that are highest up in that range with a win. But there's still plenty of time for major developments to happen for those wild card spots. But let's look at the starting lineup. Starting in the last row is Austin LaPlante and Phil Parker. Top 10, Tim Fiegel is on the pole for today, and starting next to him is Carson Gum. Row 2 will be Jake Rogers and PJ Williams. Row 3, Dorian Facepuncher, Zachary Fitzwater. Row 4, James Qualls, Pichu London. And then row 5, Chris Dollarton and Dylan Jacobs. With that said, let's get the command to fire engines for the Jack in the Box 350 at Sawmill.
Drivers, start your engines!
Cars are rolling now for their quarter pace lap around this racetrack. Now this is going to be an interesting race because we are going to see pit strategy happen around the halfway point of the race, because I did some extra testing for this race, and yeah, they tend to come into pit road on laps 8 and 9, so around the halfway point of the race we will see some pit stops happen. And now the pace car is in pit road, which you know what that means. It is time to boogity 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 go racing. Carson Gum managed to get around Tim Fiegel during the first lap, but Fiegel's still right there behind the 19. He might try and go for the lead once again. And then a little bit behind are a couple guys, PJ Williams, Jake Rogers, as these two are attempting to fight it out for third. And then meanwhile, we got a battle going on for 5th. Zachary Fitzwater has it, but the 70 of James Qualls is wanting that position. But he's got also Pichu London and Raphael LeDuc right on his tail as well. But up here at the front now, Carson Gum's starting to pull away from the 8 of Tim Fiegel. Carson Gum up here at the front, he's looking to try to get his 2nd win this season. Despite being a go-or-go homer, Carson Gum's had a decent season so far as performance goes. It's just he's had some bad luck trying to qualify into races. Same goes for Tim Fiegel. Tim Fiegel is almost in the top 30 in points, I believe, as I apologize for the freeze, but I was just double checking. So, as far as that top 30 situation, Chris Michaels is the driver on that danger zone. He's ahead by 39 points over Jay Jefferson, and Jay Jefferson I don't think qualified in the race today. Tim Fiegel did, and Fiegel is 59 points behind, and if Fiegel can come through with a good finish and reel in on that 30th spot in the points, he could manage to get himself in the top 30 in points here very soon. As meanwhile, this fight for 3rd between Williams and Rogers is still going, and they're not too far behind the battle for the lead, as the lead only grew by a 100th of a second, so you can tell it's still pretty close between the top 2. But the 89 of PJ Williams is trying to hold off a charging Jake Rogers, and this is the highest I think I've ever seen Jake Rogers in a field in a Marvel Studios Cup Series race so far. He is qualified in a majority of the races, but more often than not, he ends up wrecked or finishing outside 30th. And I believe he's one of only 2 drivers, as I'm going to double check. Yeah, he's only one of 2 different drivers who has not got a top 10 this season. The other one being Jake Baskinger. But yeah, with Jake Rogers' stats this season, he is qualified in what will be 14 out of 17 races. Average finish 31.62. He has just not caught a break all season long as far as trying to get a decent finish and not crashing. Looking around to check on who all was in the back, and I saw, yeah, Charles Sanford's in the back here, and that is not good for him as far as the point situation goes, and he's about to get passed by Austin LaPlante for position. But back up here at the front, Carson Gum still holding a steady lead over Tim Fiegel as PJ Williams still hangs on the 3rd. As we're getting close to that point of when they are going to have to come in the pit road for gas and tires. But Carson Gum passed the pole sitter on lap number 1 before they even got to the start-finish line, and has held on to the lead ever since. But Tim Fiegel actually gained a little bit on the 19 right there for the lead. Managed to beat him by a half a tenth of a second in the lap time, so maybe the 8 might have something for the 19. We'll see if he can keep reeling them in, and then whenever they come in for pit stops, maybe the 8 could reel them in even more. Same could even be said for PJ Williams in the 89. He's been quietly up here with the leaders. It's just he's also trying to hold off Jake Rogers and James Qualls. As I see Qualls, he's reeling in the 87 for the 4th spot. And let's actually see where the other high drivers in the points are running right now. Let's see where the points leader David Rivera is on track. 25th, so if things play out the way they are now, Qualls would retake the points lead going into next week, which is Daytona. Sanford back in 41st. And Dylan Jacobs, let's see where he's at. 9th. Not a bad run going for him. Trying to remember who else is up there in the points. I don't remember. At least not right now. But Carson Gum still leads. Oh, but they're coming into pit road. But we got quite a few drivers going to stay out an extra lap. Jake Rogers is going to stay out, and he's going to inherit the lead. I apologize for that freeze up again. Just looking at something. But yeah, Jake Rogers now has the top spot for the time being, as a good majority of drivers have decided to come in the pit road. As I'm trying to get a good camera shot of pit road here. I think this may be the best camera, the TV2 camera. So I'm staying with Tim Fiegel and then watching for Carson Gum. And there goes Carson Gum, and then Fiegel, and then Williams and Fitzwater. Man, 2nd through 4th there out of the guys who did pit are all close together, and Carson Gum has gotten away with a big lead over those guys. But I think they were the only ones who came in. And now here comes Rogers, but JT Bryant stays out another lap. And he's going to inherit the lead. Baskinger stays out, same with Kyle Keith. Phil Parker stays out. And I think they're the only ones who stayed out. So now we're going to keep an eye on Jake Rogers here, because he came in to the pits as the leader. Let's see. Oh, he's having a slow stop. Oh, and he gets into Matt McIntyre. That's going to cost him a lot of valuable track position. And I think everything's going to get cycled back over to Carson Gum anyways, and Carson's going to have a gigantic lead. Oh, but I hear cars scraping. Oh, and that was Qualls who got the wall. I thought there was a crash going on, and whoa, Dylan Thoreau got slightly turned, but he saved it. As I hear more cars getting into that wall, and there's a crash. Caution's going to come out, I believe. Multi-car accident occurred, and yes, the caution is out. And oh man, JT Bryant was in the pits as this happened, so the race might have gone over to the 22, or whoever's going to come out of pit road first out of this group. And it looks like Phil Parker is, but maybe he stayed out an extra lap. So right now, according to scoring, Phil Parker is the leader, and I don't think he's gone in the pit road yet. But I got a feeling if he doesn't get in the pit road soon, he's going to run out of gas and end up falling back big time. And I thought he was running out, but no, his motor's still going. But man, that just changed the complexity of this entire race, that caution coming out. But speaking of that caution, let's take a look and see what did bring the caution out for the first time today here at Sawmill. So all this started back here on the exit of pit road, as it's 3 wide coming out of the pits. Joshua Sekuli, Zach Flickinger, and David Rivera, as they get together. Rivera gets sideways, but he saves it, but bounces off the wall and turns into the 4 of Zach Flickinger, and Flickinger's just barely sideways, and then he finally gets turned around. But then it's going to be the 7 of Johnny Gardner that's going to come in, and he gets caught up in the grass, couldn't move down, and gets into the 4, and then Preston Plord actually ends up getting into the back of Gardner, and then Jessica Sheldon barely gets into the 4, but not enough to cause damage. But all that was big enough to bring out the caution, and now the race is about to get really interesting for the win, because I don't know officially who the leader will be when we get to the line, but we're going to find out as we're going to take you to the restart here at Sawmill. Well, surprisingly, no cars retired out of the race. At least it hasn't been confirmed yet. No, indeed, nobody's retired, but we're getting ready to go back to green as the field is all back up together. Carson Gum gets the lead back. Second is Zachary Fitzwater. Third is Tim Fiegel. Fourth is P.J. Williams. Fifth, J.T. Bryant. Sixth is Peachy London. Seventh, James Qualls. Eighth, Dylan Jacobs. Ninth, Dorian Facepuncher. 10th, Rafael Leduc. 11th is Jake Rogers. 12th, Charles Jackson. 13th is Jonathan Zorline. 14th, Dylan Thoreau. 15th, Jake Baskinger. 16th, Andrew Rich. 17th, Chris Michaels. 18th, James McLeod. 19th, Kyle Keith. 20th, Dylan Poteet. And I believe that's going to be all the field I'm going to get to. Green flag back out. It'll be 3 laps to go. And Carson, I don't think, got off to a very good restart there. Zachary Fitzwater did, and now he's right on the back bumper of the 19, but now maybe the car is starting to come around for the 19 as he's now getting back going pretty well, but the 91 is still right there, but here he comes! Fitzwater with the run on the inside. Only the second big battle for the lead under green, and Fitzwater clears the 19. So move Zachary Fitzwater into that lead spot right now. Wow, a big pass for the lead right as we get back to green, and it's the 91 of Zachary Fitzwater who took that spot. Carson Gum falls back to second. 2 to go here at Sawmill. Meanwhile, Tim Fiegel hanging on to third, but he's got Pichu London right on his tail as these two are going at it for position. Looks like Rogers and Jackson managed to find a way around the 99 of Leduc, as Leduc, I don't think, got off to a very good restart, but 99 still hanging on to the 12th position for the time being. But right now, the 91 is starting to pull away a little bit from the 19 of Carson. And look at J.T. Bryant. He's up here at the top 5. I guess that strategy for him staying out longer did work out for him to get a good finish, as he's now right behind the 21 of Peachy London. If he can find a way around him, that would be for 4th. But the white flag is getting ready to wave, but the caution is out again! Oh, and who is that? That's Benjamin Miles, who ended up outside the racetrack, and the caution comes out when we are taking the white flag. The race is basically over, and Fitzwater is going to get the win as a result of the caution coming out right before they got to the white flag. This might have been a multi-car thing, because Seth Cole's in the back, same with Phil Parker. But Benjamin Miles, I saw him go off the racetrack. Real quick, before we get to the checkered flag, we're going to take a look and see what happened to bring the caution out for the final time here at Sawmill. Okay, brace yourselves for one of the wildest wrecks all season. Watch the 9 of Paul Minnick. He gets into the 23 of Chris Dollerton, and then watch the 55. Get up into the wall, and it's going to send him for a wild flip. And, man, and then look at this. He ends up flipping over the wall onto the into the forest part of the racetrack, so he's into the forest with all the trees. But man, that is one of the craziest wrecks I think I've ever seen, because simply this is a road course, and you typically don't see cars flipping at road courses unless you're at Thornton going off the turn of death. But man, he flipped over the wall outside the racetrack and into the trees after a hard hit as a result of the 9 getting into the right rear of the 23, and I'm not sure as to what that was all about, but there may be a rivalry between those two now. But let's go ahead and take you to the checkered flag here at Sawmill. Well, after that crash, I'm pretty sure cars are going to be retired officially, but we are coming to take the checkered flag. It's waving. Zachary Fitzwater wins the Jack in the Box 350 at Sawmill Speedway. First career win in the series for him, and what a way to get it off with a great green flag lap pass for the lead over the 19 of Carson Gum when we got back to racing after the first caution. But man, that was a interesting race to say the least. Probably the best Sawmill race we have ever had, because we had a lot of different passes. We had a couple of passes for the lead under green early in the race and then late in the race. But let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the results. Carson Gum, the dominant car of the day, comes through in the second position. Still a great run nonetheless for the 19. Excuse me. Tim Fiegel, despite getting on the pole, he didn't get... Sorry, I'm getting the hiccups. Tim Fiegel comes through in third, despite not leading a lap. Still gets a great run and now will help him towards getting into the top 30 in points. Pichu London with a solid run in the fourth position, and then JT Bryant, the surprise of the day, comes through in fifth. Anyways, sixth was PJ Williams. James Qualls, who could take the points lead back, comes through in seventh. Dylan Jacobs with a great run in eighth, solid run in ninth for Dorian Facepuncher, and then the highest finishing rookie, Jake Rogers, finally gets a top 10 finish in the 10th spot. Rest of the top 20 was Charles Jackson, Rafael Leduc, Jake Baskinger, Jonathan Zorline, Andrew Rich, James McLeod, Dylan Thoreau, Chris Michaels, Dylan Poteet, and Kyle Keith. Rest of the top 30 was David Rivera, Dougie Shears, Mark Lane, DJ Curtis, Dylan Young, Trent Dunham, Charles Sanford, Zach Flickinger, Sean Galligan, and Matt McIntyre. And the rest of the top 40 was Jessica Sheldon, Austin LaPlante, Joshua Sekuli, Ashlyn Boyd, Emmanuel Hartnett, Paul Minnick, Johnny Gardner, Chris Dollarton, Seth Cole, Phil Parker. And then the final two cars that were a lap down or wrecked were Preston Plord and Benjamin Miles. But that does it for our coverage today here at Sawmill Speedway. Next week, we return to the opening the opening race of the opening track of the season, I should say. We return to Daytona for the Coke Zero 400. But until then, here are your results, rookie points, and regular points heading into Daytona. And this is Levi McIntyre, signing off.